So now this is going over how I sublimate tumblers, and those 2 steps that I promised you coming up real quick. One thing about these tumblers is, of course, you have to measure them, right? I could tell you the measurements, I can give you the measurements, but here's something that I've never heard anybody say, right? So aside from the 2 little techniques I'm gonna show you, which is really simple, but just people don't use it because they're not thinking about using it. So, microfiber towel, wipe off the tumbler. But I can tell you measurements that I use. Now here's something that I've never heard anybody discuss. They tell you, oh, use these measurements. You can order the same tumbler and they have slightly different dimensions. So you can order the same tumbler, they can send you 4 of them. And one of them could be slightly taller than the other. It could be slightly wider than the other. But here's what I'm saying. When you measure these, if you're working on a 8.5 by 11-inch print, please take into consideration if your printer is a borderless printer. If it has the capability to print borderless, or it has a border, that can affect your print. Nobody's ever said that. I've never seen anybody say it. I've never heard anybody say it. People will measure, then when you print it out, it's a different size than what you measured at, and then it's like, oh man, this is like a really tight fit. Why does it fit like that? Your printing preferences can or does play a large part in it. So be mindful of that huge fact, because you might print it as, you might set your dimensions at it, because if you got an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, if your printer does not print full bleed, which is all the way to the end, borderless, that's what it is, full bleed, then now you don't have 8.5 worth of a dimension, because you got a border around your top and bottom edge on the 8.5 side. So now you're really more at like a 8.2. So, and that border around the edge might not even be an even one, it might be uneven, because sometimes, most of the time when I look at it, I don't have a border list. So my printer prints with a border. So the border is uneven. You know, you cut that stuff off when you go to sublimation anyways. You know, I mean, if that's your choice, or you want to leave it on there, whatever you do, it's totally up to you. But that's a huge fact or factor that goes into why your print might be off when you go to put it onto, and then your print settings, if you have it selected to fit or shrink to fit or fit, all that all that stuff that plays a part in how the paper comes out, how it applies to the tumbler. So tumbler wiped off after 20 minutes of me talking to you the whole time, to get any oils or debris off of the tumbler. I stand it right side up. Some people do it upside down. I do it right side up. I'll show you why in a moment. Take my image. And then see, I have a slight overlap. You probably can't see it on camera, but proves a human being did it. As long as it's not all butchered and messed up. If a line shows up, it's the same of discoloration. That's fine. You did it by hand. Wrap this thing, make sure it's straight, and then see it's just hanging over the edge on the bottom. But there's a good portion up at the top, overhang for the paper. What I do, take my thumb and push it up so I get a nice even overhang on the top and the bottom. Never seen anybody use that, or tell that. I've never seen anybody. I just do stuff different, I guess. You want the paper as tight as you can get it. What I know, heat, pressure, listen, heat it, pull this thing tight around the paper, right? I put a piece of tape in the middle. What I didn't tell you, or you might know anyway, if you know me, you know, but I'm a drummer. So this particular technique comes in handy when you have a cracked drumstick or a cracking drumstick. You get a piece of black electrical tape and you tape that boy up real tight. So what I do is I get the heat tape, start at the overlapping edge, secure the tape on the top overlapping edge, grab this boy right here and pull it. And as you pull, push the tape down. Drummer technique. Probably more than drummers, but that's where I get mine from. Down. So you're going to see ripples in the paper. So you know you're pushing out the air. So see, I'm holding this thing and I'm pulling. You probably can't see the paper rippling, but I make sure the tape is securing close to, and I pull it tight to make sure the tape presses my image down against it, and I put my tape real tight up against the edge of it. So when I put it in the oven, then it sublimates all the way down to the curve. Next move. I went ahead and taped up that one seam down the middle, but I'm gonna use the shrink wrap. When you put this shrink wrap on, you don't have to put it on super tight. Why? Because when you put this in here, it's gonna heat it up and it's gonna tighten up some more anyways. So, here's one of the promised techniques that I'll tell you you've never seen before, and you'll probably never see anybody else do it until they watch this video. So, check it out. Totally cold, right? Here's the plug. It's not even plugged in. This was hot or warm. I'm actually touching the heating element in the bottom. Totally cold, right? I got it set at 300 degrees. I got it set on bake, and I'm gonna put this timer. It's on 0 now, but I'm gonna plug this in. Here's method or technique number 1. Totally cold, right? I'm plugging this in the wall, and then technique number 2. You've never thought about it before. Everybody's using parchment paper, copy paper, maybe even wax paper, a butcher paper, all these papers, and then they're concerned, ain't nobody even using aluminum foil in here, tumbler on top, stick it in there, set that to 5 minutes. It's totally cold. So from a totally room temperature oven and 5 minutes. I'm a time guy. I like to know my times. It's gonna take 5 minutes in it. So I wanna know how much time it's gonna take me to produce one of these. Why can't I stick the tumbler in there and hit the button and turn that sucker on and know that in 5 minutes or less, I'm gonna have a tumbler? So that's what I like. I've never seen anybody else do it. Everybody else preheats their stuff. Once I look at this, I'll probably even take my time down. So to less than 5 minutes, because I set the timer at 5 minutes. I am pulling this off so you can see, but I'm gonna give it away. If you would like to win this, go to thekhulis.com, scroll down to the bottom, enter the VIP mailing program. It might be tough. But I could probably take my time down, so it probably take 3 or 4 minutes from a room temperature. That's me, my settings. Probably from room temperature convection oven to 3 or 4 minutes later, totally done tumbling. And then we as creatives, we tend to overthink things sometimes. So the aluminum foil part, why would you not use aluminum foil? I put paper in that thing and use somebody else's settings that they, oh, you don't have to put it in there for X amount of minutes. Use copy paper. And I put some copy paper in that thing and I almost burn it up. That and the machine, I caught it. Good thing I was sitting right here, but caught it just in time. Oh man, I meant to turn this heat press on so it can be calculating. But and print goes right up to the edge on the top and the bottom, and you got a little fading down at the bottom, but I don't care. This little stuff at the bottom can happen, or maybe is going to happen at some point during sublimation. So therefore, that's great, man. This is how it comes out. That's my technique. If you have like any questions or comments or something, or realize how silly you were for putting copy paper in the flipping convection oven at 400 degrees on turbo for 6 minutes. That makes sense. That makes sense, man. Like to burn myself up out the crib. But aluminum foil, people using like silicone paper and mouse pads and all that stuff. Man, get you a piece of aluminum foil, put it over that grate, and put that tumbler in that thing like you baking some potatoes.